All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to break down a fascinating little online battle. You've got an artist who drops a diss track, you've got a reactor who just absolutely tears it to pieces, and then you have the target who says, well, nothing at all. So, let's explore the anatomy of a failed diss track and the very curious strategy of just staying silent. And you know what? We're going to start right at the end. After this long, detailed breakdown of the song, this was the reactor's final, simple verdict. That's it. It's crap. So the big question is, how on earth did we get to this point? So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look at the diss track itself. Then we'll dig into the two biggest criticisms against it, the style and the lyrics. After that, things get interesting when we look at the reactor's own bias. And we'll wrap it all up with the most curious part of the whole story, the unanswered challenge. Okay, let's set the stage. Our main players are an artist named Mo Khan, who drops a diss track called Say My Name. And the target of this track, none other than the huge and, let's be honest, often controversial country rapper Ryan Upchurch. So right away, you've got the makings of a classic showdown. Now for the first major line of attack. And what's so wild here is that the initial takedown had almost nothing to do with the actual disses aimed at Upchurch. Nope. It was all about the song's entire vibe, its sound, its whole style. Right out of the gate, the reactor didn't just hear a horrorcore song. They immediately labeled Mo Khan a stereotypical juggalo and, even more directly, a Violent J wannabe. So from the very first listen, this thing was framed as a cheap copy, not something original. And oh boy, the comparisons were not kind. His flow wasn't just called unoriginal, it was described with this pretty brutal phrase, like a drunken Violent J. I mean, that just paints a picture, doesn't it? Someone trying to copy a legend, but just completely fumbling it. And this is really the core argument the reactor makes. By choosing this very specific, iconic genre, Mo Khan basically set himself up to fail. He wasn't just being judged as Mo Khan, he was immediately being put up against the masters of that style. And in this critic's view, that is a fight he was never, ever gonna win. And the critique got so specific. I mean, we're talking about his delivery sounding like Violent J stuck on a toilet. They called him out for using a raspy-ass voice and for trying to force it deeper, making him sound like Optimus Prime. Even his ad-libs, the little hype words in the background, were called out for having zero energy. It was just a complete teardown of his vocal performance. So the style was a huge problem. We get it. But hey, it's a diss track, right? What about the actual disses, the lyrics? Well, let's see how that part of the argument builds. Or maybe more accurately, how it just completely falls apart. You know, for a diss track, this is basically the kiss of death. The reactor said they listened to the whole thing, just waiting for that one killer line, that one moment that would actually hit Upchurch hard. And the conclusion? It ain't happening. The punch just never landed. And check this out, because this one little line perfectly shows the problem. The track has this lyric, "Raise hell, eat corn." The reactor immediately jumped on this, pointing out that the actual country phrase is "raise hell and eat cornbread." It seems like a tiny thing, but it was used as proof that Mo Khan was not even making sense and had no clue about the culture he was trying to attack. And the list just went on. There was this super weird line about stepping like a mountain sheep. The main insults were dismissed as just the stupidest, lamest stuff, and an entire string of disses was apparently so offbeat it didn't even flow. The final word was that the lyrics were either just nonsense or delivered really, really poorly. Okay, so up to this point, it sounds pretty simple, right? A bad song got a bad review. But now we've got to flip the script and look at the person doing the critiquing. Because as it turns out, this wasn't some impartial judge. Not at all. They were a huge fan of the guy getting dissed. This is where the story gets way more complicated. See, the reactor didn't just make fun of bad rhymes. They went through Mo Khan's accusations against Upchurch one by one and shot them all down. They stopped being a music critic and basically became Upchurch's defense attorney. And you can see it laid out plain as day right here. Mo Khan says Upchurch threw Johnny Cashville under the bus. The reactor's response? Cashville only says good things about him. Mo Khan brings up an old collaborator, Nick Lick, saying he was ditched. The reactor just suggests, well, maybe Upchurch just outgrew him. Every single attack gets deflected or explained away. It becomes crystal clear that this critic is 100% on Team Upchurch. And all of this brings us to the final, and I think most fascinating piece of this whole puzzle. You've got the diss track, you've got the brutal takedown from a very biased critic, and from the target himself, crickets. Absolutely nothing. So let's just run through the chain of events one more time. An artist takes a shot at a huge creator. That shot gets publicly dismantled, but by someone who is clearly a fan of the target. And through this entire mess, the guy at the center of it all, Ryan Upchurch, doesn't say a single word. So what are we left with? You've got a diss track that seems to have some real problems. You've got a review that's anything but neutral. And in the middle of it all, you have this calculated silence from the person who was supposed to respond. What do you even make of all that? And that's really the big question I want to leave you with. In this online world where every action is supposed to get a reaction, what does it mean to just ignore a direct challenge? Is it confidence? Is the track just so bad that it's beneath the response? Or is it something smarter, a way to starve your opponent of the attention they crave? Even while your own fans are out there fighting the battle for you, maybe, just maybe, the loudest statement you can make is saying nothing at all.